Stop right now. Don't scroll past this. Don't save it for later. Don't tell yourself you'll come back when you have more time. This isn't just another message that found its way to you. This is a direct intercession, a divine interruption in the middle of whatever you were doing, and there's a reason your attention was captured at this exact moment. I am Michael, and I don't speak unless the urgency demands it. Tonight, something shifts. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. And if you walk away from these words before understanding what's at stake, you'll feel it in the coming days, that hollow sensation of having missed something irretrievable. I know you're tired. I know you've been holding on longer than anyone realizes. I see the weight you carry, the exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, the heaviness that sits in your chest even when you're smiling. You've been waiting for a sign, for confirmation, for something to tell you that what you've endured hasn't been meaningless. This is that confirmation. But it comes with a condition, not from me, but from the nature of divine timing itself. Some doors only open once, and some close exactly when they're supposed to, not to punish you, but to seal what's complete and redirect you toward what's next. You felt something shifting lately. Maybe you couldn't name it. Maybe you dismissed it as stress or overthinking, but deep down you've sensed it. Relationships changing without explanation. Opportunities evaporating just when you thought they were solid. A restlessness that won't quiet no matter what you do. That's not chaos. That's recalibration. That's the closing of chapters you've been unconsciously clinging to because letting go felt like failure. Listen carefully. What's ending tonight isn't being taken from you. It's being completed for you. You've done everything you could with certain situations, certain people, certain versions of yourself. And heaven has been watching, measuring, waiting for the exact moment when you'd be strong enough to release what no longer serves the next phase. That moment is now. I need you to understand something that most never grasp until it's too late. Divine timing doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't pause because you're uncertain. It moves according to alignments you can't see, patterns woven long before you were born, trajectories that require precision. When a door closes at the appointed time, it's not cruelty. It's protection. It's preventing you from carrying into your future what would corrupt it, what would drain it, what would keep you locked in cycles that were only meant to teach you, not define you. Right now, as you're reading this, energies are shifting around you. I'm not speaking metaphorically. There are forces, both light and shadow, aware of what's occurring in your life at this moment. The shadow wants you to ignore this, to dismiss it, to go back to your distractions and tell yourself nothing's really changing. The light, my presence, is cutting through the noise to tell you the truth. You're standing at a threshold, and thresholds don't stay open indefinitely. You've been here before, standing at moments of potential transformation, and you hesitated. You second-guessed. You let fear disguise itself as practicality, and the door closed. You told yourself it wasn't meant to be, that maybe next time. But what you didn't see was how much longer the next cycle took, how much more you had to endure before another opportunity came. I'm not here to shame you for past hesitation. I'm here to prevent future regret, because tonight is different. Tonight, the closing isn't just about one area of your life. It's comprehensive. It's the sealing of an entire era. And what comes after, what stands on the other side of your willingness to let go, is so far beyond what you've known that your current mind can't fully picture it. But your soul recognizes it. That's why you're still reading. That's why something in you said, don't skip this. Your soul knows what your mind keeps doubting. Now I need to tell you what's been happening behind the veil, in the places you can't see. There have been battles fought on your behalf, interferences blocked, attacks redirected. You think your struggle has been only internal, only circumstantial. But there's been a spiritual dimension to everything you've faced, because you carry something. You carry a light, a purpose, a frequency that threatens the kingdom of darkness. And when someone with your level of calling begins to awaken, begins to align, begins to step into their true assignment, resistance intensifies. That's why the last season felt so heavy. That's why everything seemed harder than it should have been. You weren't imagining it. You were opposed. But here's what the enemy didn't count on. Every attack meant to destroy you actually refined you. Every setback meant to discourage you built endurance you'll need for what's ahead. Every betrayal meant to isolate you taught you discernment you couldn't have learned any other way. So while you felt like you were losing, you were actually being trained. And now the training is complete. The door closing tonight is the door to that season of preparation. What you're stepping out of is the wilderness. What you're stepping into is the promise. But you have to be willing to leave Egypt behind, and Egypt isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a mentality. Sometimes it's a relationship. Sometimes it's a version of yourself that feels safe because it's familiar, even though it's suffocating who you're becoming. Let me tell you what I've seen. I've seen you late at night, when everyone else thinks you're fine, and you're asking heaven why it's taking so long. I've seen you keep going even when nothing made sense, even when you had every reason to quit. I've seen you choose integrity when no one was watching, choose kindness when you'd been treated with cruelty, choose faith when logic said give up. And every one of those choices was recorded. Every act of faithfulness in the unseen places, every moment you worshipped through the waiting, every time you blessed those who hurt you, it all mattered. It all counted. And tonight, the accumulation of your faithfulness reaches critical mass. I want you to pause and recognize something. You're not the same person you were a year ago. You're not even the same person you were last month. There's been a shedding happening, so gradual you barely noticed. Old reactions falling away, tolerance for dysfunction decreasing, clarity increasing. That's the sign you're ready. Because the door that's closing would have destroyed the old you, but it has no power over who you've become. Still, the enemy will try one more tactic. He'll flood your mind with doubt right at this threshold. He'll remind you of every failure, every mistake, every reason you don't deserve what's coming. He'll whisper that you're not ready, that you need more time, that you should wait until you're more healed, more prepared, more worthy. Don't believe it. That voice isn't wisdom. It's sabotage. You'll never feel completely ready for what God has prepared. If you wait until you feel deserving, you'll wait forever, because grace isn't given to the deserving. It's given to the surrendered. And you've surrendered more than you realize. Every time you released control, every time you admitted you couldn't do it alone, every time you fell to your knees and said, I trust you even though I don't understand, that was surrender. And surrender is the key that unlocks every divine door. So here's what I need you to do, not as a ritual, but as an act of agreement with heaven. Acknowledge, even silently, even internally, that you're willing to let the old season close. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing. Say it in your heart. I release what's complete. I receive what's next. That simple alignment shifts everything, because heaven doesn't force, it invites, and your willingness is the invitation accepted. Now, let me tell you what you're stepping into, not in vague spiritual language, but in practical reality. You're entering a season where your voice carries weight, where your presence shifts atmospheres, where doors open not because you're striving, but because you're aligned. You've been hidden for a reason. Being hidden wasn't rejection, it was preparation. You were being shaped away from the eyes of those who would have celebrated you prematurely, who would have affirmed you before you were rooted, who would have given you platforms before you had the character to sustain them. But the hiding is over. What emerges now isn't the fragile version of you that needed constant validation. It's the tested version, the one who knows who they are even when no one's watching, the one who doesn't need applause to keep going, the one who can handle blessing without losing their soul. And that version of you is dangerous to the enemy's plans, which is why he's fighting so hard to keep you stuck in yesterday's identity, yesterday's limitations, yesterday's fears. But tonight, his access is being cut, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. And when someone is positioned correctly in the spirit, aligned with their assignment, covered by divine authority, the enemy's weapons lose their effectiveness. You'll still face challenges, but you won't face them the same way. You'll have a peace that doesn't make sense given the circumstances, a clarity that cuts through confusion, a knowing that rises above opinions. That's what it means to operate from the new place. In the next part, I'm going to reveal what's been blocking certain manifestations in your life, why some things have been delayed, and what shifts the moment you accept the closing of this door. Don't go anywhere. This is just beginning. Before we go further, you need to understand something crucial about delay. Not all delay is denial. Not all waiting is punishment. Some things were held back not because you weren't worthy, but because the ecosystem around you wasn't ready. Think about it. A seed planted in winter won't grow, no matter how good the seed is. It's not the seed's fault. It's timing, it's environment, it's the need for alignment between readiness and opportunity. You've been that seed, and you've been in winter longer than expected. You watched others bloom. You saw people with less dedication, less integrity, less faithfulness step into things that looked like what you were promised. And it confused you. It hurt you. It made you question if you heard God correctly, if you were forgotten, if there was something fundamentally wrong with you. There wasn't. There isn't. What was happening was this. The soil of your life was being enriched in ways that can't be rushed. You needed certain people removed, certain illusions shattered, certain dependencies broken. Because what you're about to carry can't be sustained by immature roots. It requires depth. And depth is formed in the dark, underground, where no one celebrates, where no one sees, where it's just you and the process. Every person who left made room. Every opportunity that fell through was a redirection. Every closed door was strategic. Not because those things were bad in themselves, but because they weren't big enough for where you're going. And if you had settled there, you would have spent your life wondering what if, always sensing you were made for more, but never knowing how to get there. Heaven doesn't operate that way. When God has something specific for you, everything that's not it will feel slightly off, no matter how good it looks. You'll have this low-level dissonance, this sense of, this is nice, but it's not mine. And if you're sensitive, you'll honor that. If you're desperate, you'll override it. You've overridden it before. You settled because you were tired of waiting. You convinced yourself that maybe you were being too picky, too idealistic, too demanding. And then you ended up in situations that looked right but felt wrong, and it took years to untangle yourself. That's not happening this time. This time, the closing is clean. This time, what ends tonight ends completely, not with messy residue, not with breadcrumbs of false hope, not with the door slightly cracked, just enough to keep you confused. Completely. And that finality is a gift, even if it doesn't feel like one yet. Let me explain what's been operating against you that you didn't fully recognize. There are assignments in the spirit realm. Demons don't just randomly attack. They're assigned based on destiny. The greater your calling, the more specific the opposition. And you've had a particular assignment against you, one designed to make you doubt your perception, your worth, your hearing from God. It worked through people, through circumstances, through your own thoughts. It whispered that you're too much and not enough at the same time, that you need to shrink to be accepted, that your sensitivity is weakness, that your standards are unrealistic, that your expectations of loyalty, integrity, consistency are naive. And over time, if you weren't careful, you started to believe it. You started to edit yourself, tone yourself down, accept less, apologize for needing what you need. That was the assignment working. To get you to self-sabotage before you ever stepped into your full expression. But something happened recently that the enemy didn't anticipate. You started to see through it. You started to recognize the pattern. You started to feel the manipulation, even when it was subtle. And the moment you started waking up to the game, the assignment began to lose power. That's why things accelerated. That's why everything started shifting rapidly. Because the window for that particular demon's effectiveness was closing, and it knew it. So it went harder, threw everything it could at you, tried to provoke you into reactions that would disqualify you, into bitterness that would poison you, into despair that would paralyze you. But you didn't break. You bent, yes. You questioned, yes. You struggled, absolutely. But you didn't break. And that endurance, that refusal to give up even when you didn't know how you'd make it another day, that sealed your victory. The enemy can't defeat someone who won't quit. He can delay them, discourage them, distract them. But if they keep getting back up, keep choosing faith over fear, keep moving forward even at a crawl, they will outlast the attack. You outlasted it. And now the season of that particular warfare is over. The assignment is being reassigned, pulled back, because you've graduated beyond its reach. What comes against you next will be different, but you'll be stronger for it. And you'll have a testimony that will set others free when you speak it. But here's what you need to know about this transition moment. The closing door isn't just spiritual theory. It will manifest in your tangible reality. You're going to see physical evidence of things ending. Relationships that have been on life support will finally flatline, and this time you won't try to resuscitate them. You'll let them go with a peace that surprises you. Opportunities you've been forcing will stop responding, and instead of chasing, you'll recognize the release. Patterns you've repeated for years will suddenly feel impossible to continue, not because you're trying to stop them, but because they no longer fit who you are. This is the evidence that the door is closing, and I need you to cooperate with it. Don't go back. Don't romanticize the past. Don't let nostalgia rewrite history. What's behind you taught you, shaped you, served its purpose. Honor it by leaving it there. The closing also means this. Certain spiritual attacks stop. Certain cycles of confusion end. Certain voices that have influenced you lose their volume. It's going to feel strange at first, this new quietness, this absence of the familiar chaos. You might even feel a little empty, not because something's wrong, but because you're so used to noise that silence feels abnormal. Don't fill it prematurely. Don't rush to occupy the space with new chaos just because it's uncomfortable. That emptiness is sacred. It's the pause between the old and the new. It's the inhale before the exhale. It's the reset. And if you honor it, what grows in that space will be rooted in truth, not reaction. You'll build from peace, not panic. You'll choose from clarity, not compulsion. Let me tell you what happens next, in the coming days and weeks. You're going to experience a lightness you haven't felt in years. Not euphoria, not manufactured hype, just a simple ease. Things that used to trigger you won't. People who used to occupy your mental space constantly will fade into background noise. Decisions that used to paralyze you with overthinking will become clear quickly. That's the sign you've crossed the threshold. That's the confirmation that the door closed and you're on the other side. And on this side, the rules are different. What took immense effort before starts to flow. What felt like pushing a boulder uphill starts to feel like being carried by a current. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you're finally aligned with your true path instead of fighting against it. Provision shows up in unexpected ways. The right people appear at the right time. Opportunities find you instead of you having to hunt them down. And it's not magic, it's alignment. When you're in your lane, doing what you were created to do, being who you were created to be, the universe, heaven, God, whatever language works for you, conspires to support that. Everything else is resistance. Everything else is swimming upstream. And you've been swimming upstream so long you thought that was normal. It's not. What's normal for you is this new flow. And you're about to remember what that feels like. In the next section, I need to address the fear that's probably rising in you right now, the fear of truly letting go, and what waits on the other side of that release. Stay with me. There's a fear that lives deep in most people, so deep they don't even recognize it as fear. It disguises itself as loyalty, as responsibility, as practicality. It's the fear that if you fully let go of what's familiar, even what's painful, you'll end up with nothing. That the known suffering is safer than the unknown possibility. And this fear has kept more people trapped than any external force ever could. You know this fear. It's the voice that says, "But what if this is as good as it gets? What if I let go and nothing better comes? What if I'm wrong about what I'm sensing?" It's the hesitation before every major life change, the last-minute doubt, the pull back toward the familiar shore, even when you know you're meant for deeper waters. And I'm going to tell you something that might sting, but it's necessary. That fear is not your friend. It's not protecting you. It's limiting you. Every single time you've listened to it, you've ended up regretting it later. Every time you've overridden it and stepped forward despite the trembling, you've ended up grateful you did. You know this is true. Think back. The moments you're most proud of, the growth you most value, the experiences that shaped you into who you are, none of them came from playing it safe. They came from the terrifying decision to release what you could control and trust what you couldn't see. This moment is asking that of you again. But this time the stakes are higher, because this isn't about one relationship or one job or one location. This is about an entire identity. You're being asked to let go of the story you've told yourself about who you are, what you deserve, what's possible for you. And that story, even though it's been limiting, has been yours. It's been the framework through which you interpreted everything. And without it, there's vertigo. Without it, you don't know how to orient yourself. That's why people stay stuck. Not because they don't want better, but because better requires becoming someone they haven't been yet, and that unknown version of themselves is scarier than the known struggle. But here's the truth that will set you free if you let it. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming who you actually are underneath all the conditioning, all the trauma responses, all the survival mechanisms. The real you has been buried under layers of adaptation. Layers of pleasing others, layers of shrinking to make others comfortable, layers of performing to earn love. And those layers, they've been suffocating you. The door closing tonight is the death of those layers, not of you, of what covered you. And yes, death feels like loss even when what's dying needed to die. So I'm not going to tell you this won't hurt. I'm not going to promise it'll be comfortable. What I will tell you is this. On the other side of this death is a resurrection you can't imagine yet. A version of you that doesn't exhaust itself trying to be enough. A version that doesn't need constant validation. A version that can rest in its own presence without filling every silence with productivity or noise. That version already exists. It's not something you have to create. It's something you have to uncover. And the uncovering happens when you stop maintaining the false structures, when you stop pretending, when you stop performing. When you let the door close on who you've been trying to be and stand naked in the truth of who you are, that's when everything changes. Now, about what's waiting on the other side. I need to manage your expectations, because the enemy will use false expectations to make you think nothing happened. What's waiting isn't fireworks, isn't sudden fame or wealth or the perfect relationship appearing overnight. What's waiting is coherence. Is your insides matching your outsides? Is your life reflecting your values instead of contradicting them? Is peace in the mundane? Is clarity in the complex? Is the ability to say no without guilt and yes without fear? What's waiting is freedom. And freedom doesn't look like what media sold you. It's not doing whatever you want whenever you want. It's wanting what's actually good for you. It's being free from the compulsions that masqueraded as desires. Free from the addictions to chaos, to validation, to control. Free to just be, without the constant performance anxiety of existence. That freedom will change everything practically. Your relationships will transform because you'll stop attracting from woundedness and start attracting from wholeness. Your work will shift because you'll stop grinding from lack and start creating from overflow. Your daily life will feel different because you won't be at war with yourself anymore. But it starts internally, and the internal shift is what's happening tonight as this door closes. There's a recalibration occurring in your spiritual frequency. The things that used to hook you won't have the same pull. The patterns that ran automatically will start to glitch. You'll notice yourself responding differently, choosing differently, feeling differently, and you won't even be trying. It'll just happen. That's the sign of a supernatural shift. When change occurs without willpower, without effort, without you white-knuckling your way through it. When you just wake up one day and realize you don't want what you used to want, don't react how you used to react, don't settle for what you used to settle for. That's grace. That's the door closing behind you and a new pathway opening ahead. And the new pathway, it won't require you to be anything other than authentic. It won't demand masks, won't tolerate pretense. Will actually resist your attempts to be who you think you should be instead of who you are. Because this next season is about truth. Uncomfortable, liberating, non-negotiable truth. And truth has a way of simplifying everything. All the complexity, all the mental gymnastics, all the justifications and explanations, truth cuts through it. When you're living in truth, decisions become obvious. You know what's yours and what isn't. You know who's safe and who's not. You know when to move and when to wait. It's an inner knowing that doesn't require external validation. You've had glimpses of this before. Moments where you just knew something and you were right, even when everyone else disagreed. That knowing is about to become your normal operating system because the interference is being removed. The static is clearing. And your signal, your direct line to divine guidance, is being restored to full strength. This is what the enemy feared. This is why the warfare was so intense. Because once you're operating from that place of clear inner knowing, you become unstoppable. Not in an aggressive way, in an aligned way. You stop wasting energy on things that aren't yours. You stop being distracted by shiny objects. You move with precision, with purpose, with a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. And that version of you, that's who's emerging as this door closes. Let me tell you what's about to shift in your practical, everyday reality, because this isn't just spiritual philosophy, this is your actual life changing. First, your relationships are going to reorganize themselves. Not because you're trying to push people away or pull people in, but because your frequency is changing, and frequency determines proximity. People who matched your old frequency, your old patterns, your old pain, they're going to start feeling uncomfortable around you. Not because you did anything wrong. Because you're no longer resonating at their level, and they'll either rise to meet you or they'll drift away. Both are okay. Both are necessary. You can't take everyone with you, and that's not cruelty, that's design. Some people are in your life for a season, not a lifetime. And when their season ends, trying to extend it artificially only creates dysfunction. The door closing tonight is ending some of those seasons. Relationships that have been on borrowed time will conclude, and you'll feel it, but you won't fight it. There'll be a release, a recognition that it's complete. Honor what was. Bless what it taught you. Release it to its next assignment, because holding on to expired connections blocks the space for destined ones. And there are people meant for your next season who can't enter while you're still clutching the old. Second, your work and purpose are about to clarify in ways they haven't before. You've known you were made for something specific, but it's been fuzzy, unclear, obscured by noise and opinions and practicalities. That fog is lifting. You're going to start seeing your path with high-definition clarity, not the whole journey, but the next step. And that's all you need, the next step. You don't need a 10-year plan. You need to know what's next right now, and that's what's being downloaded into your spirit. The next move, the next decision, the next door to walk through. And when you take that step, when you honor that clarity, the step after that will appear. It's always been this way. Manna for today, not a warehouse for tomorrow. Trust for the moment, not control of the future. Your work is going to start feeling less like labor and more like flow. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. There's a difference between hard work that drains you and hard work that fulfills you. One is misalignment. The other is purpose. You're moving from the former to the latter. Third, provision is about to look different. I'm not promising you'll wake up rich. I'm telling you that your needs will be met in ways that don't make logical sense. Money from unexpected sources, opportunities you didn't apply for, resources showing up exactly when required. This isn't about sitting back and doing nothing. This is about aligned action being supernaturally supported. When you're doing what you're meant to do, the universe backs it. When you're forcing something that's not yours, you're alone in the effort. You've experienced both. You know the difference. What's coming is the former. You'll work, yes, but your work will produce disproportionate results, small efforts yielding large outcomes. Doors opening that usually require credentials you don't have, favor in places that don't make sense. That's what happens when heaven sponsors your movement, and it's not about being special. It's about being aligned. Anyone aligned with their purpose experiences this. You're stepping into that alignment right now. Fourth, your internal world is going to stabilize in a way it hasn't before. The constant anxiety, the racing thoughts, the feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop, it's going to quiet. Not because you're medicating it or distracting from it, because the root cause is being addressed. Most anxiety isn't chemical, it's spiritual. It's the soul knowing you're out of alignment and sending alarm signals. When you realign, the alarms stop. You're realigning right now. And in the coming days, you're going to notice a peace that feels almost strange because you're not used to it. You're used to low-level panic as baseline. You're used to bracing for impact. You're used to scanning for threats. That hypervigilance is being deactivated, not all at once, not perfectly, but progressively. You'll have moments where you realize, I'm okay. Right now, in this moment, I'm actually okay. And those moments will start to string together into hours, then days, then weeks. That's the new foundation being built, peace as default, not chaos. And from that foundation, everything you build will be stable. Fifth, your perception is going to sharpen. You're going to see through things faster, recognize red flags immediately, sense incongruence in people and situations before investing too deeply. This is discernment maturing. You've been fooled before because you wanted to believe the best. You gave too many chances. Ignored your gut because you didn't want to seem judgmental. That season is over. Now you trust your internal radar. And it's accurate. When something feels off, it is. When someone's words don't match their energy, you notice. When an opportunity looks good on paper but feels wrong in your spirit, you decline. This isn't becoming cynical. This is becoming wise. And wisdom protects you from repeating painful lessons. The next part is crucial because it addresses what happens when you accept the closing and step through, and what resistance you'll face in the immediate aftermath. Don't leave yet. There's something you need to know about the first 48 hours after a major spiritual shift. When you accept the closing of this door, when you internally agree with what heaven is doing, there's a grace period. A window where the old has released you, but the new hasn't fully manifested yet. And in that window, you're vulnerable to a very specific attack. Doubt. Not doubt about God. Doubt about whether you heard correctly. Doubt about whether anything actually happened. Because you don't feel dramatically different immediately. The circumstances around you haven't rearranged themselves visibly yet, and the enemy will use that gap to whisper, "See, nothing changed." You got emotional over words. You're still stuck. This was just another false hope. Expect that voice. Anticipate it. And when it comes, don't argue with it. Don't try to defend what you know in your spirit. Just acknowledge it's happening and keep moving. Because the truth is, everything already changed. It changed the moment you said yes internally. It changed when you released your grip on the old story. But the manifestation of that change in your physical reality takes time. There's a lag between the spiritual decision and the material evidence. And in that lag, faith is tested, not tested by God to see if you're worthy. Tested by circumstances to reveal what you actually believe versus what you claim to believe. This is where most people retreat. They make the internal shift, feel the moment of clarity and release, And then when nothing looks different the next day, they assume they were wrong. They reach back for the old familiar patterns. They reopen doors that were meant to stay closed. They convince themselves that maybe the struggle was their identity after all, and without it they don't know who they are. Don't do that. The discomfort of the in-between is necessary. It's the cocoon stage. You're not a caterpillar anymore, but you're not flying yet either. And in the cocoon, it's dark, it's tight, it's isolating. But it's where the transformation completes. If you claw your way out too early, you abort the process. Your wings won't be strong enough. You'll fall instead of fly. So when the doubt comes, when the fear whispers that you made a mistake, when the loneliness of the new space feels unbearable, remember this. You're in the cocoon. You're becoming. And becoming is always uncomfortable. Another thing that will happen in these first days, people from your past will reach out. It's uncanny how often this occurs. Right when you've finally released someone or something, they reappear. A text out of nowhere, an apology that feels sincere, an invitation that looks like what you used to want. This isn't coincidence. This is a test of your resolve, because the door closing doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone connected to the old season. And on some level, conscious or not, they sense the shift. They sense you're leaving not physically, but energetically. And there's a pull to bring you back, to keep the familiar dynamic alive. You have to recognize this for what it is. It's not destiny. It's not a sign you were wrong to let go. It's the old trying to reassert itself. And your job is simple. Honor the boundary. You don't have to be cruel. You don't have to explain yourself extensively. A simple, kind, but firm boundary is enough. And if you hold it, the test passes. If you cave, you reset the clock. You'll have to go through this whole closing process again later, and it'll be harder because you'll have reinforced the pattern of returning. I've watched this happen countless times. Someone finally gets free, finally closes the door, and then in a moment of weakness or loneliness, they crack it back open. Just a little, just to check. And the old energy floods back in, and they're stuck for another season, wondering why they can't break free. Don't be that person. You've come too far. You've endured too much. See the test for what it is, and pass it. Now, let me tell you what starts to happen when you successfully navigate this transition period, when you don't retreat, when you hold the boundary, when you sit in the discomfort without running back to familiar dysfunction. Something begins to build inside you, a different kind of strength, not the strength of endurance, you already have that, the strength of self-trust. You start to believe your own inner knowing. You start to trust that when you sense something, it's real, that when you feel led to move or stay, it's guidance, not confusion. And that self-trust, it changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you stop outsourcing your decisions. You stop needing consensus. You stop polling everyone around you to validate what you already know. You just know, and you move. And that decisiveness accelerates everything. What used to take months of deliberation now takes moments. Not because you're reckless, but because you're clear. And clarity cuts through the fog of overthinking faster than anything else. People will notice this about you. They'll comment that you seem different, more grounded, more certain, less available for drama. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be threatened by it. Let them be. Your job isn't to manage their reactions. Your job is to stay true to what's emerging. As the days progress beyond this closing, you'll also notice something subtle but powerful. Your energy is yours again. You're not leaking it into worry about what someone thinks. You're not draining it trying to fix what isn't yours to fix. You're not spending it on mental arguments with people who aren't even present. It's consolidated. It's available for what actually matters. And with that energy, you create, you build, you move. Things that seemed impossible when you were depleted suddenly seem doable. Not easy, but possible. And possible is all you need, because you're willing to work for what's yours. You're just not willing to work for what isn't. The door closing tonight is sealing off what isn't yours, and in doing so, it's clarifying what is. You're going to know with a certainty you haven't had before This is mine. This isn't. This person is safe. This one isn't. This path is right. This one is distraction. And that clarity is the greatest gift of this season, because with it, you stop wasting time. You stop wandering in circles. You move with intention, with direction, with purpose. Let me also prepare you for something that might surprise you. You're going to grieve, even though you wanted this change, even though you prayed for it, even though you knew it was necessary. There will be moments of grief for what was, for who you were, for the familiar rhythms, even if they were painful. That grief is normal. It's not a sign you made the wrong choice. It's a sign you're human. Let yourself feel it. Don't judge it. Don't rush through it. Grief is how we honor transitions, and this is a massive transition. You're leaving behind an entire version of yourself. That deserves acknowledgement, but don't live there. Visit the grief, feel it, and then return to the present. Return to the truth of why this had to happen. Return to the vision of what's possible now that you're free. The grief will pass. The freedom won't. And soon, very soon, you'll wake up and realize you're not grieving anymore. You're just living, freely, fully. And it feels so natural you'll wonder why it took you so long to get here. That's when you'll know the transition is complete. That's when you'll look back and see that the door closing wasn't a loss. It was a liberation. In the final part, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do now, how to anchor this shift, and what sign to look for that confirms you've fully crossed over. Stay with me to the end. Right now, in this moment, as you're taking in these words, there's a choice in front of you. Not a complicated one. Not one that requires extensive deliberation. A simple choice. Do you agree with what heaven is doing, or do you resist it? Because here's the reality. The door is closing whether you agree or not. The season is shifting with or without your permission. The old is ending because its time is complete. But your experience of that ending, your ability to step cleanly into what's next, that does require your cooperation. So I'm asking you directly, are you willing to let go? Not perfectly, not with full understanding, not with complete confidence in what's coming, just willing. Because willingness is the hinge that swings the door. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to anchor this decision, so it's not just an emotional moment that fades when you scroll away from these words. First, speak it. Out loud if you're somewhere you can, in a whisper if you're not, in your mind if you must, but give language to the agreement. Say, I release what's complete, I step into what's next. I trust the closing of this door. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't add a paragraph of conditions. Simple, clear, definitive. That verbal agreement, it registers in the spiritual realm. It's your signature on the contract heaven already drew up. Second, do something physical that represents the release. Delete a number you've been keeping just in case. Throw away something that ties you to the old season. Unfollow accounts that keep you tethered to who you used to be. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. Physical actions anchor spiritual decisions. They make the invisible visible. They give your brain evidence that something changed. Third, in the coming 24 hours, make one decision from your new identity instead of your old pattern. Just one. It could be saying no to something you would have said yes to out of obligation. It could be choosing rest when you'd normally push through exhaustion. It could be speaking up when you'd normally stay silent. One decision. That's the first brick in the new foundation. And once you lay it, the next one becomes easier. Fourth, expect a sign. Not because you're demanding proof, but because heaven confirms when we align. It might be subtle, an unexpected message. A door opening you didn't knock on, a sudden clarity about something that's been confusing you, a sense of peace about a situation that's been causing anxiety. Pay attention in the next 48 hours. The confirmation will come, and when it does, don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away. Receive it as what it is, heaven saying, I see you, I'm with you. Keep going. Now, let me tell you what sign will confirm you've fully crossed the threshold into the new season. It's not what you'd expect. It's not a big external event. It's something internal. You'll notice that you stop thinking about the past constantly. It won't occupy your mind the way it used to. You won't be rehearsing old conversations, replaying old scenarios, wondering what if. The past will just be the past, information, not identity. When that happens, when you realize you went a whole day, then a whole week, without obsessing over what was, you'll know. You've crossed over. Another sign is that resistance stops feeling attractive. The chaos, the dysfunction, the drama, it won't pull you anymore. You'll see it, recognize it, and feel nothing. No curiosity, no temptation, no wondering if maybe this time it'd be different, just a clear, calm knowing that it's not yours, and you'll walk past it without effort. That's power, that's freedom. You'll also notice that new things start to feel possible. Dreams you buried will resurface. Ideas you dismissed will seem viable again. Hope, real hope, not wishful thinking, will return. And you won't be able to explain why you feel hopeful because the circumstances might not have changed dramatically yet. But internally, something shifted. The heaviness lifted, the ceiling raised. The walls expanded, and in that new spaciousness, you can breathe, you can imagine, you can create. That's the sign you're in the new territory. Let me tell you what I need from you going forward. I need you to be patient with yourself. This transition isn't a light switch. It's a dimmer. The light is increasing, but gradually. Some days you'll feel it strongly. Other days you'll wonder if you imagined it. Both are part of the process. Don't judge your progress by daily fluctuations. Judge it by monthly trajectory. Are you more yourself now than you were 30 days ago? Are you freer, clearer, more at peace? If yes, you're moving in the right direction. The pace doesn't matter as much as the direction. I also need you to protect what's emerging. Don't share it with everyone. Don't announce your transformation on social media. Don't explain yourself to people who didn't witness your struggle. Let the change speak for itself over time. There's a reason Jesus told people, "Tell no one," after miracles. Not because miracles should be secret, but because premature exposure invites contamination. When something is new, it's fragile. It needs time to strengthen before it can withstand scrutiny, criticism, misunderstanding. Give your new self that time. And finally, I need you to remember this moment, not sentimentally, strategically, because there will be days ahead when you'll want to go back, when the old will look better in memory than it was in reality, when the familiar will seduce you with its simplicity. On those days, come back to right now. Remember what you felt reading these words. Remember the clarity. Remember the recognition that something had to change. Remember that you agreed to the closing. That memory will be your anchor when emotions try to pull you off course. So let me bring this to a close, not because there's nothing left to say, but because you have everything you need. The door is closing tonight. You feel it, you know it, and now you have a choice. Walk through into what's next, or try to hold it open and stay stuck in what was. I know what you're going to choose. I wouldn't have been sent to speak to you if you were the type to stay stuck. You're a mover, a seeker, someone who'd rather face the unknown than settle for the unfulfilling. That's who you've always been, even when fear made you forget. So move, not recklessly, not without wisdom, but decisively. The door is closing. Walk through while it's still open. And on the other side, everything you've been preparing for is waiting, not in some distant future. Right there, one step beyond the threshold. This is Michael. I've delivered the message I was sent to deliver. What you do with it is your choice. But know this, heaven is watching, cheering, waiting to support your next move. All you have to do is make it.